Good evening. I'll call the Community Development Commission meeting for this evening to order. We'll start off with the roll call.
We have the public hearing.
Do we do that before
We do that
without the
first,
roll call?
yes, before
Then
we-
we'll do that. Then in that case, we do have a public hearing. This is the second public hearing. Purpose of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity for the public to provide input and comments regarding the proposed City of Urbana and Urbana Home Consortium Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2018-2019. Notice of this public hearing was published on April 10th on the City of Urbana website and emailed to various social service agencies and neighborhood groups. Copies of the fiscal year 2018-2019 Annual Action Plan were made available to the general public beginning Thursday, April 2nd, 2018, and will be available through Friday, May 11th, 2018, at the following locations: Urbana City Clerk's Office, 400 South Vine Street, Urbana; at the Urbana Free Library, 201 South Ray Street in Urbana; at the Community Development Service Department, also at 400 South Vine Street in Urbana, and on the City of Urbana website, www.urbanaillinois.us. I now declare this public hearing open. If anyone desires to express their views regarding the proposed annual action plan, please come forward and be recognized. Your written comments are also welcome. Thank you. Seeing that there are no comments available here tonight, I'll now declare the public hearing portion of the meeting closed.
Thank you.
Now, we will do roll call.
Commissioner Cobb, Commissioner Diana,
Here.
Commissioner Moreland,
Here.
Commissioner Hines Silvis, Commissioner Salam,
Here.
Commissioner Hodgen Jones, Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Winston, Commissioner Freeman. We have a quorum.
Thank you. In your packet there, you should have a copy of the minutes from our last meeting. We'll take just a minute for anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to look those over to review them, if you would. Has everyone had an opportunity to read them over? If so, are there any comments or questions or a motion for their approval?
I move that minutes be approved as read and with any corrections.
All right, is there a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Are there any corrections or any comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the minutes are approved. The next item on our agenda is petitions and communications, which is the portion of the meeting at which anyone in the audience can bring something forward that may not be on the agenda. Seeing no one available to do so, I would say we are fine. I'm not used to seeing that audience participation.
Yeah.
What do we
Yeah,
have
actually,
entertainment now, or what? What's going
Actually,
on?
the petitions and communication is like written,
Okay.
any written letters from the
Gotcha.
residents or anything, and then audience participation is actual people in the
Gotcha.
audience that want to come, so.
Okay, very good. Then we have neither, so we will move along to staff report then.
Okay, I'll direct your attention to the staff briefing that was in your packet and point out that we received a couple of letters from HUD since our last meeting. One of them was HUD regarding our monitoring of our supportive housing program or continuum of care program. There was one final finding that needed to be done, and we completed it. That finding is now closed. The monitoring is completed, and this grant is actually was done as of the end of February. So the only thing that we have left to do is complete the annual performance report, which is due by the end of May, and then that's it. And then the second letter we received was from HUD regarding our timeliness test for our community development block grant. There, the 1st or 2nd of May, they run a timeliness test to see, are we at 1.5 or less of our grant, which includes carryover and other things. So they had sent a letter saying that we were above the 1.5. And then we did an internal check and found that we had some outstanding payment vouchers through the system. And once they got approved, it put us below at like 1.27. So we ran that test again, printed it out. We sent it to our HUD rep, and so we are in compliance. When they officially run the report at the beginning of May, we will be fine. So, and then other than that from HUD, what staff are working on, of course, is the annual action plan for next fiscal year. Still working on coordinating with the analysis of impediments to fair housing. Monitoring budgets, procedures, policies for our community development block grant, specifically with our consolidated social service funding process. We are working with the Cunningham Township Supervisor's Office, and applications are due this Thursday by 4 o'clock, and next week we're going to be meeting and reviewing all the applications and working on recommendations for City Council, which we will show to them and see how that goes, if they approve recommendations or if they want other recommendations. So it's kind of a new process that we're trying this year. Of course, then continuing monitoring with their Emergency Solutions Grant, home program, working on the commitments. Because I believe we have till the end of July to make sure we have our commitments. And then working, of course, with Bristol, Champaign, regarding the Bristol Park redevelopment project, still working with them on that. You can see under the Housing Rehab Coordinator the number of applications that we have to date for emergency grant, access grant, senior repair service. And then a grants compliance specialist, Don, showing what he's doing as far as working on draws for this year, preparing activities for next fiscal year. And he is not here this evening because he's in Boston for a training that the finance department has sent him to regarding our new complete financial system. We have a completely new financial system with the city, and Don is our expert on that. So he's continuing getting his financial training on that. So, and then you can see the different meetings that we've attended and various webinars. So if there's any questions, just let me know.
Thank you. Just one question on that senior repair service projects. The 8 applications that we've approved, how close does that put us to kind of maxing that out? Any idea?
I don't think we're close to maxing.
We're still got a ways to go? Okay.
We usually,
I didn't know what size the projects were.
right,
so,
yeah,
okay.
mostly, at least the last few years, we haven't spent all the money, and then
Right.
it carries over, and then it can be used for other projects.
Right.
Like property acquisition and other things, so. But,
So we're still running pretty well under that this
Mm-hmm.
year, too.
Yeah, I think that we have helped a lot of families, a lot of households, and so that may be why maybe applications aren't up as much as they used to be. But in light of, in our newsletter, we may start getting some more calls with new residents, in the new areas,
Right.
finding out about our programs. So, but yeah, we're good.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is old business, which I don't believe we have anything that needs to be addressed under that. So we will move on to the new business that's on the agenda. First item being a resolution approving the City of Urbana and Urbana Home Consortium fiscal year 2018-19 annual action plan.
Okay, so the issue before the commission is to review the annual action plan and to make any final recommendations to staff, and then to the Urbana City Council. So what we have done is basically have the draft annual action plan, and HUD every year they send out a notice because the budget comes from Congress and approval and signed by the president. So that can take a while because the fiscal year actually ends September 30th. New fiscal year starts October 1st. So in however many recent years, they've just never had a budget that's ready for the grantees come our fiscal year. So they send us guidance on what to do, because part of the annual action plan process is that we have to have public comment and citizen participation on proposed projects and what they may need in their neighborhood and with the city. So what we do per this instruction is have estimated funding amounts, and then we are also, as part of it, we have to include, so that we don't have to have like another citizen participation and public hearing and public comments, we can state that the budgets will be proportionally increased or decreased from the estimated funding levels. And so we based the funding levels on 17-18 budget, but also state that if we receive more money, which is always possible, that we would increase proportionally our programs in the budget, or decrease. So that way, once it's approved here and it goes to council and they approve it, then it's ready to submit once HUD contacts us and says, here's your allocation, we have determined this is how much you're going to get, and then we can change our annual action plan because it goes into the IDIS system and is submitted to HUD that way. So we can go in and change the dollar amounts in that system and then submit it without having to wait any further once all the bodies approve it. So, so I attached to the memo is, of course, the annual action plan and expected resources and all that information. And also, let me find it.
Okay.
Okay, I know that there was, it was on the back of the memo.
Oh.
I was flipping
I
all
thought I
through
had seen
sorry.
it somewhere there too.
I should have tabbed it. So, based on this fiscal year, 17-18, we're estimating that the home grant will also be the same amount of $641,206. Of course, we get 10% for administration, which would be $64,120, which shows personnel and then other, which would be like office supplies and those things. And then the total set aside, that is a requirement for the home regulations, that we set aside 15% off the top for any community housing development organizations that we have, so they can access those funds to build affordable housing. And right now, Habitat for Humanity is the total that we have. So they could apply for that, and hopefully they will. And then after that, then the consortium split shows, based on population, what city of Champaign, the county, and Urbana receive. Those might change as well. HUD sends that information out. So Champaign could be up as much as 52%, and so then those dollar amounts would change. But this is, again, the proposed. And then showing the CDBG, again, estimated as the $364,676. With CDBG, we get 20% of the grant for administration, so that would be the $72,935. Of course, then splitting for personnel costs and then other administration. We can pay for home administration out of CDBG, and of course, then that would also cover, again, office supplies, travel, conferences, those kinds of things. And then also with CDBG is another cap, which is the public service. So we can't put any more than 15% of our total grant into public service activities. So that shows there the $54,701. Out of that comes the transitional housing program, the neighborhood cleanup, and then the consolidated social service funding, of which we put a small portion into the general overall city general fund and Cunningham Township, together making it consolidated. So that shows that. And then under the affordable housing programs, that's program delivery, which can also be considered like administration, staff costs, and it's tied to different projects, activities, or addresses that we do. So that helps as well. And then seeing the housing related, showing the emergency access, senior repair, and then property acquisition. So this is, again, just proposed, but once we actually get the final allocation from HUD, then we will change those numbers, increase or decrease proportionally to the percentage. So, so I included with this the actual guidance that we received from HUD and how they determine, and the purpose to help grantees with the timing of the submission. So if that's something that you're interested in reading further about, you have that to see. And then the annual action plan itself, which is showing the objectives under the executive summary. We have to evaluate our past performance, summary of our citizen participation process and consultation, who we've talked to, and through our different neighborhood meetings and different organizations and meetings that we attend is where we gather a lot of input. So, and then showing the resources and where the funding will go is in here, and the different projects, summaries, and then in any other actions. So if there's anything that you have questions about, please let me know and we can go over those.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Audience.
Sir?
I apologize, I think I may have gotten here a little too late for the participation, but I just, if we be allowed, I'd like to just make one brief comment about that.
I think we could make an exception. Would you like to step up to the table there and give us your name and information and tell us what you want to speak to us about?
Okay. My name is Ben Miller. I am a resident of Urbana, and I am currently the president of Champaign-Urbana Friends and Allies of Immigrants and Refugees, CU FAIR. We are working with a number of organizations. I think perhaps even Reverend Freeman may be familiar with our organization. We are working to be able to assimilate into decent housing the influx of foreign-born in Champaign and Urbana. I'm sure all of you are aware that Urbana has the highest percentage of foreign-born in Champaign County. 1 in 5 persons in Urbana are actually foreign-born. Of course, a lot of this population are international students, but there's also a significant population of asylees and diversity visa families, primarily from Africa, a very large population from south of our border. 1 in 3 are persons that don't have documentation and work visas, and so they have particular difficulties. But we also have a number of families here that are moving into Section 8 housing and in other affordable housing here in town, and we're working with those families to help them establish their roots in our community. So my only comment is that I just, there are, beyond that, of course, a very small number of refugee families, but there's a woman here from Syria that just recently located after living years in Lebanon. She reunited with her son, and she's found, housing near Lincoln Square Mall, and there's, as I mentioned, a Congolese family that just moved into Section 8 housing. So these groups are coming here, and they are in our community, and we hope that in the action plan that we can take into consideration the needs of these families and help them find the proper housing, help them with relocation, help them become aware of the opportunities, particularly for diversity visa families, that there are opportunities here. Some of them are not aware of these opportunities, and so we're working hard with a lot of other organizations here in town, the University Y, the new American Welcoming Center, and the CU Immigration Forum. And so I just thank you for the opportunity just to make mention of this, and as the action plan moves forward, that we take in consideration the needs of these families.
Okay, thank you. What organizations or what segments of the city of Urbana or Champaign County have you gotten directly in touch with, and through community development, or have you sat down with those folks, like these folks, and had any conversations yet?
Yeah, I personally have not done this. I took over the responsibilities for this organization really a matter of less than 6 months ago. I first, my involvement with CU Fair has been to organize our board to secure our not-for-profit status, and do an assessment, I think, listening to the families here in town that we're trying to help. But I look forward to those opportunities. I know that I was very heartened that the Congolese family that we were working with and helped to relocate into Section 8 housing, they had a very good experience with the persons that helped them with their Section 8 application. So I think that was a good experience, and we intend to follow up because there's a lot of other families that I think are eligible for that type of relocation.
Yeah, it would be my recommendation is that the more time that you can spend getting to know the people in the local administration and so forth, the better, because like you say, it's knowing what programs are there or what
Right.
aren't. We have some great things that run through community development, but ours is also always focused on, we have a target area that we work with. So all of our programs kind of function, a lot of them within those boundaries.
Okay.
And knowing where those boundaries are, we were just talking about that at the beginning of the meeting. It's like most areas in Illinois, it's kind of hard to figure out the shape of it without a map in front of you, but that's
Yeah.
good to know, because then you know, are you in that area where we have senior programs or assist programs or things like that for some folks once they're in there. But that's would be my recommendation, is get together with the folks who do that every day and figure out what the game is and what the rules are. That's the easiest way to go, to figure out what, because there's a lot available.
I think
right.
I look forward to that, and I appreciate that recommendation. I would just say that, as I mentioned, we have 10 issue-based steering committees, and one of them is housing, the other is relocation, donations, and household and furniture, storage and redistribution. So we're just getting, I think we're going to be able to do an awful lot in this area, and we look forward to having these opportunities, and thank you for that recommendation.
Oh, just somebody who's new in town. If you could find a way in which we could force only English-speaking folk, how can we communicate effectively? I found myself picking up immigrants or persons trying to find help and bring them to the location,
Right.
but I lack information on how to actually do that, or what is the best way to get that information out there. I have a growing congregation, and we have almost every nationality in our congregation, but if I could have something in my hand, I could push to that. Once you talk to everybody, that would be helpful.
Well, I'll look forward to that. I think that's one of the key issues. We do have, I think, our largest steering committee is the group of family liaisons and cultural integration. And we have a number of we're fortunate, I think, in this community to have a number of Spanish-speaking and French-speaking folks that are, that have an interest in helping out with making these connections. And we have, I wouldn't say these are not all active, but we have around 30 faith-based congregations, and probably 10 or more, around 10, I would say, secular or non-faith-based organizations that are part of our group. And we will be visiting and talking about more about what kinds of things we can offer and how we can help out and bridge the gap with some of these language issues and cultural issues. So I would look forward to that. As I say, it was important to establish a good structure for the organization, and from really a small number of people that were operating the organization to expand its board, and we're in the process now of doing some training and some organization. So I think that what you're talking about we'll be able to do in the not too distant future.
Thank
Sure.
Question?
You mentioned that you had been on board for 6 months. How long has this operation been operating?
CU Fair has been in operation for really about a year and a half, but there was a large spike of interest in the organization after the November elections. So a lot of people felt the need that they wanted to get involved. They were concerned about the direction the country was taking and some of the policies, particularly directed towards immigrants and refugees. And so it really, the organization really got a lot more people got involved, starting in December of last year. And so, yeah, it's a young organization, but we are allies with the University YMCA, the New American Welcoming Center, and they've been around for a long time. And of course, we work with the East Central Illinois Refugee Center. We partner with them. There's another organization called Three Spinners that we work with. So there's organizations that have been around and doing this kind of thing for some time that we are partnering with them. The difference is that we are a service organization made up of volunteers. So certainly not all 300 persons that have come to a meeting are actively involved, but we're making a real effort to give people an opportunity to be able to do direct service with these families.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All
I
right.
appreciate your making us aware of that, and I would say get together with the city and see what you can figure out.
Vice versa. Thank you, and apologize for coming in late, but
Not a
thank
problem.
you for the opportunity to talk.
Appreciate it. Okay.
So back to the plan.
Back to the plan.
Are there any big changes or big differences in this plan compared to last year's plan, Kelly?
No, not really.
Any secrets that you put in there for us to discover, little Easter eggs or anything?
No.
Okay. That's very
That's
professional
a
of
good
you
idea, though. Yeah,
to not do
next
that.
time
Yeah.
to see if you really read it by giving you a test. Yeah.
We discussed massive salaries for commission members, but they tossed that out.
Glad that was.
Yeah. Yeah, these action plans are generally, it's like it's steering a battleship. There aren't very many adjustments year to year to keep it sort of going in the same direction. So,
But we do try to, if we get input from a neighborhood group regarding wanting streetlights, we can work to try to add that in
right.
to the plan.
Any other questions? If not, we have a couple of alternatives. As always, staff recommendation is to forward this resolution to the city. It still has an approval process to go through there. It needs to go to the committee, and then from the committee to the whole board, so it's got a couple more steps to go. But we have the ability to send this along with our recommendation for approval, or we can send it along without any recommendation one way or the other, or we could send it along, I guess, with recommendations for changes or alterations, which would really throw a monkey wrench in the works. But we could do that, so.
Yes, if you look at page 2, toward the top, it has the different options that you can go through. So you can also recommend it's not approved. So that would make it sticky too. Yeah.
There you go. So if anyone has a motion that involves one or the other of those recommendations, we can entertain that.
I move that we forward the resolution approving this annual action plan to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And it's forwarded with our recommendation for approval.
Great, thank you.
The next item on our agenda is a resolution approving and authorizing Urbana Home Consortium subrecipient agreement with Rosecrans.
So this,
And I'll have Matt talk about this one.
There you go.
yep,
This is your baby.
of course.
You saw it, okay.
Yep. But as the resolution states, the issue before us tonight is a subrecipient agreement for tenant-based rental assistance with Rosecrans. It would continue to fund their existing program of tenant-based rental assistance that primarily, but not exclusively, focuses on some of their other clients and people with mental and physical disabilities. The agreement would allocate $35,065 and $72 towards their program, and the reason that number is a little less round than usual, we worked with our financial staff and we came to the realization that with another homeowner-occupied whole house project, doing one of those, as was mentioned in the staff briefing, we had exactly that amount left in the City of Urbana's portion of the Home Consortium for fiscal year 16-17 to commit before we would meet our, at least crossing the finish line for the portion that the city was allocated of home funds, and allow us to reach our commitment deadline. So that's the reason that we bumped them up a little bit more than what they asked for. That's the main reason. The other reason being that when we provided them with $30,000 in October, we anticipated that it would last them a little bit longer, and I originally thought about a year, but here we are in April and talking about additional funding, and that's a good problem to have. You know, they're really getting the money out the door. They're helping a lot of people, so we do want to pass along a new subrecipient agreement to them. With that in mind, as you had mentioned before, the options before the commission are the usual options to approve with suggested changes, or not recommend that the Urbana City Council approve the resolution. The staff does recommend approval of the resolution, and Julie Cartel from Rosecrans tried to make it tonight, but she had a family emergency. So if you do have any questions specifically towards Rosecrans, let us know, and we can try to get in touch with her and pass those along. But anything home-related, Kelly and I are here and can answer questions related to those.
Just one question I would have, just for further information on that, whereas you mentioned the 30,000 that we had anticipated would run about a year. Is it simply because of underestimated demand for what was going to be there, or some of the costs higher, or some of the
As far as I know,
issues different?
Yeah, as far as I know, the costs haven't been higher. I would say it's more on the demand side.
Okay. Interesting. Any other questions from anybody? And I'm going to assume, too, that, as is mentioned in there, I think if we don't commit some of this money, we're going to have some problems figuring out what to do with it, so to speak. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, as I believe I mentioned in there, the commitment deadline is currently suspended, so the money wouldn't technically go back to HUD anymore, but the rule is still in place, and it could be
Could be
unsuspended
reinstated,
really at any
right.
point. So we do want to try to maintain compliance with that.
Right. Okay. All right. If there aren't any other questions, I would entertain a motion. Again, we have the same three options. We can forward the resolution with our approval, or with a recommendation for approval. We can approve it with any suggested changes if we have any, or we can recommend that they not approve it.
I move that we forward the resolution approving authorizing the Urbana Home Consortium recipient agreement to this Urbana City Council with recommendations for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that is passed. Thank you. And the third item then on our agenda tonight, under new business, is a resolution authorizing the city to participate in the Illinois Housing Development Authority Abandoned Property Program.
So this is, again, a continuation of a program that we were awarded previously by IDA and through the Abandoned Properties Program. Our last award was for $71,000, and as you can tell here, we've been awarded another $55,000 on top of that. The process for being allocated these funds requires a resolution passed by the local body, then submitted to IDA before they will consider entering into an agreement with us. And believe there is a deadline on that coming up in, I believe, early June. Yeah, June 6th is when that would be needed. So we would like to, bring the resolution before the Community Development Commission. The agreement has not actually been provided to us. The agreement that we've put into this packet is what we believe the agreement's going to look at. It's the template version from the previous funding round. We said it in a webinar from IDA, and they did not say that there were any new regulations. It's really just extra funding for the same program. So we anticipate that the legal agreement is going to be relatively similar, if not identical. So I just wanted to let you know it is subject to change, but yeah, that's something that we will be talking with our legal division about before we bring that to City Council. We do anticipate hearing or receiving the actual language of that agreement pretty soon. This is a program, just going into some of the eligible uses. Primarily, we anticipate using it for demolition of blighted and abandoned structures. There would be no relocation involved in this. If it is a structure that has someone living there, it's not eligible for the program. These are for abandoned, blighted structures. There are other eligible expenses, including cutting of grasses, boarding up structures that we've looked at for the first round that we've received. But in the end, primarily what we have used it for is for demolition, and that's what we expect to use this funding round for as well. And as usual, the three options available to the Community Development Commission are to forward this resolution to the Urbana City Council with recommendation for approval, to forward with recommendation for approval with suggested changes, or to not recommend approval of the resolution. In terms of fiscal impacts, this is additional money that would be coming into the city from the state. We expect to potentially tie that together with our community development block grant funds. They go hand in hand when it comes to slum and blight reduction, activities of that nature. We could potentially acquire properties with CDBG and then demolish them with Abandoned Properties Program. Those are just some thoughts and possibilities. Staff does recommend approval of the resolution, and Kelly and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
And that, we had, that the city is undertaking a contract with all the directors too. Does the city do that, or we contract it out to
We contracted out to local contractors. We have several firms that come in. It's a sealed bid process. We take the low responsible bidder, and our rehab specialist, Randy Burgett, handles that process. And we usually have 3 or 4 different contractors that bid on it. And yeah, it just goes to the lowest bidder.
What is our kind of target list looking like right now for properties that need to be demolished or one of the lesser remedies? We got a lot of them.
We have a few. We've been working hand in hand with our building safety division on that, and they've given us a list of, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 properties that they had identified that could work with this grant program. And obviously there's priorities in place, some that would be more immediate threats to health and safety, and some that for whatever reason might be difficult to acquire and work with. So yeah, there's a lot of priorities that go into trying to figure out which properties would work. But yeah, we're very much involved in trying to figure out what those might be, and we do have quite the list that we can work on.
Are some of those good targets for Habitat properties down the road right now?
Yes,
Good.
absolutely, and that's our goal for all of these properties. 2 of the properties that we used the last award on are also currently owned by Habitat, and they have immediate plans for redevelopment of those parcels. And in a perfect world, yeah, we would definitely like to have Habitat or another Chodo redevelop any of these blighted abandoned properties. But a lot of times if a structure is just unsafe, the first priority is just getting it down, and we'll see what happens later.
Out of curiosity, have any commercial properties wandered onto that list yet, or?
We cannot demolish or work with commercial properties at all using this grant.
It's just residential.
Yeah.
Would it make a difference what the next use was going to be?
It would not. If it's commercially zoned, we can't use it.
Okay, so it's strictly running off the zoning, not off the
Yes.
use?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Just have one question. If we go for option 1, then that would lock in what we currently have present. Do we want to have a modified change giving you permission to modify it, bring it into compliance with what will come down from Ida? That make sense?
I think that that recommendation might give us more flexibility with regards to that.
Right, because I'm saying if something changes
Yeah.
drastically, you don't know about it, then it has to come back here. But if it's not as significant, I'd just like to make a friendly amendment, if I could, to option 1. Well, I guess it'll be
Or you could just,
option 2.
Yeah.
option 2.
Option 2,
Mhm.
that
And
we
make an
would
amendment to
bring
that.
it within compliance with the regs as they come down, so that it will be in compliance.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm saying, but.
Yeah, I get the idea, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have the words in my brain.
No, you're fine.
So can we consider that a motion then?
Yes, I so
Okay.
moved that we would amend that, David, to give permission to amend what they're recommending to bring it in compliance with. Is it our?
It's
The
the
agreement.
agreement.
It's the agreement.
Yeah, the actual text of the agreement.
Modify it to match the actual agreement. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion? And then we have a motion to forward the resolution authorizing the city to participate in Illinois Housing Development Authority Abandoned Property Program to the Urbana City Council with a recommendation for approval with the suggested change of allowing staff flexibility to modify it to match the actual agreement. Does that sound like what we want to do? Excellent. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? And that motion passes. Thank you. That's a good suggestion. I do not believe we have anything for study session or anything. So that being the case, we have exhausted the agenda and the meeting will be adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.